Alrighty. Hello, my name is Birbeck, and I'm here to talk to you about mechatronics and my passion project. I'll start with my motivation behind joining the Mechatronics Academy. So when I heard about academies at Croxford, I knew that I wanted to participate in one that would teach me material that would be valuable in life while also being interesting and include material that I enjoy learning. I found mechatronics to be an academy that fits all this criteria. So when I was just starting out, some of the concepts I hope that I advance my skills in by participating in mechatronics include coding, designing, creative thinking, and problem solving. Back when I first heard the name mechatronics, I immediately thought of the tronics part of it. I perceived it to stand for electronics and recalled how much I like working with computers and creating systems with them. This was another reason why I knew this academy was for me. But fast forwarding to the end of this year in mechatronics, I can confirm that several projects have helped me advance my coding skills, creative thinking skills, problem solving skills, and designing skills. Some of these projects include the Spaghetti Bridge project, which helped me improve my designing skills, and the various engineering design challenges, which helped me improve my creative thinking skills, as well as this passion project, which has helped me further develop all of the skills I listed. So at the end of this year in mechatronics, myself and fellow students were tasked with creating a passion project. This is a self-directed project where students only have to follow a few guidelines and the rest is up to the students to determine. I embarked on this challenge and created an online database that is designed to be used at home in times like this, where people would like to limit the amount of times they go out and grocery shop. The data in this database for my project can be shown, manipulated, or deleted with the use of a website. Inventory that can be tracked is any physical item, from cleaning supplies to a box of crackers. On my master list, you can add or remove items as you buy or use them, and you can also do the same thing with categories. You can add or remove them. There's an added search bar for convenience and to be user-friendly, and 4 tabs that can be clicked on to move you from page to page on my website. I call this whole project the Inventory Management System. This project relates back to mechatronics because it involves computer science and digital presentation. Both of these are areas of focus in mechatronics. Earlier in this year, we learned about coding languages such as CSS, HTML, and Python, and I utilized this knowledge to make my passion project. Here. This passion project is truly a passion to me because I love coding systems that are able to achieve a task successfully. I've always enjoyed both learning and creating systems with code. This project fits both those circumstances. I'm also passionate about this specific project because right now there's no clear program that tracks what items you have at home, so I wanted to create a solution. The inventory management system will benefit tomorrow's society in times like we are in right now, when resources are of the essence and it is crucial to track the amount of supplies you have and which supplies you need to buy. One of the major uses for the system, as I said earlier, would be in the situation when people want to limit the amount of times they go out and grocery shop. So there are 5 coding languages that I needed to learn to have an understanding of what to do in order to complete these projects. These languages are 2 new languages, PHP and SQL, as well as languages that I've worked with a bit before, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The first thing that I needed to learn was PHP and SQL, what they are, and how they play a part in web development and in databases. In terms of SQL, some of the main things I learned throughout this project is how to insert and delete items from a database, and how to link 2 databases that have intertwined content, which is like I have 2 tables. One is an items table and one's a categories table, and they both share a category ID column. So you can link the 2 tables together using that category ID. In terms of PHP, I learned about how it's a coding language that allows to make a website interactable. I also learned that PHP is a separate engine and it operates on the server side of a website as opposed to JavaScript, which is on the browser side. I learned how the PHP engine works and how to use PHP to modify a web page's information depending on what the user does. And PHP combined with JavaScript creates the interactability of a website. I also learned how to use PHP functions and variables in order to run various commands on my website. In terms of JavaScript, I learned that it's a coding language that allows your website to be interactable, but it's on the web browser side. I also learned concepts such as JavaScript variables and functions to carry out several tasks in my website. Two more languages that are needed to complete this project are HTML and CSS. In terms of HTML, I learned various new concepts such as how you can add classes or IDs to tags in HTML to give them a classification so you could target them later. I use this concept with my buttons and how I bind which buttons are associated to which item to delete or add. Another thing I learned is new HTML tags, such as the script tag, which allows you to put JavaScript in it, and that's how you run JavaScript, and various table tags. I also learned things in CSS that made my website look good. For example, how to identify and target an HTML ID and class, and you could set specifications for them specifically by referencing that. Oh, sorry. So to document my learning, I did three major things. Firstly, at the end of each day, I annotated and commented on what each section of code does. Secondly, I filled out journals at the end of each day that I worked on my passion project. I explained in these journals what challenges I experienced that day, or what my final thoughts were on for the progress that was made that day. I also posted pictures of my progress in this journal. Lastly, before I began creating this project, I made a Google document that listed all the potential resources so that I could find all the information I needed in order to complete the inventory management system. And my final product has mostly become what my plan wanted to be, but there's a challenge with the edit button, so I had to replace it with a delete button because I was running low on time, and that was one of my main challenges that I had while developing this was time management, because this took a lot of time to create. Anyway, it is a database and website that includes 4 tabs to navigate through my 4 pages: the master list page, categories page, add item page, shopping list page, and you can see them all in the pictures. It has a search bar, so you can type the first few letters of your item, and it narrows it down to items that have the same letters in their name. And you can also add or remove items or categories from their associated pages, and there are working buttons that can be clicked to achieve several tasks. The first takeaway that I had from this passion project is that I realized the importance of student voice and choice to increase student learning and productivity. Basically, when you give a student choice over what they do, they feel greater pride and honor that it was their idea, and hence they work harder to ensure that it was done with a higher level of detail. And like an example of this is when a youth asks themselves, oh, I'm going to go and clean up my messy room for once. Now this concept is their idea, so they do a better job when cleaning. But if one of their parents comes in and tells them to do it, then they'd be less obligated to do a good job because then it's not their idea. The second takeaway I had from this is taking risks, and I think it's a very important aspect of learning, and it can be combined with student voice and choice to create a scenario where a student learns a whole lot. Taking risks increases the amount of learning and knowledge that someone could absorb. For example, with my passion project, I took a big risk and attempted to learn materials that I was not completely familiar with. As a result, I learned a lot more than I usually would if I would have stayed in my comfort zone and learned material that I already knew. The final takeaway from this project is the benefits of making learning visual. This has 2 sides, from the teacher's perspective and from the student's perspective. An example of what I mean for the teacher's perspective is like when a student sees a piece of information put together by the teacher visually. The 2 things that are beneficial from the teacher's perspective is that it allows greater success to students who learn best visually, and when you present information visually, it gives another perspective on that information instead of just using words. From a student's perspective, when a student gets to recap what they learned in a visual manner, it helps them recognize and celebrate what they have learned. And one thing I wanted to note is my mentor and dad, Darcy, he's in this call right now. I just want to give a thanks to him. He helped quite a lot, helped me when I got stuck, and helped with the learning process. Any questions?
That's excellent, Brandon. I know we have a few people who've added some questions on the chat. I'll try to go back and read them off to you. First question was, what was the engine you were using?
I used a map for my server to set up my server, and I used this code editor called Visual Studio Code, and it was really useful. If you hovered over one of the lines of code, it would tell you what it did, and it could tell you what the format you could put it in.
Okay. And then the next question was, can it work offline?
It runs off of your computer, and basically, as long as map is online and the server's online, then it'll work on your computer. It's not necessarily an online thing yet, like on the internet. But if the server on map shuts down, then it errors. And I put error code and error checking in there to give the user a message when it fails.
And of course, Kobe, going to the very technical side, do you have the ability to turn it into an APX or a .pi? If you are questioning on what that is, he can clarify that after.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really know what that is.
How does it save data?
Using variables. I use both variables in PHP and JavaScript, and basically it gets a fetch. It uses an AJAX call to go to the data, and then it stores all the results that it gets in a variable that I named result. And then you can use that result variable and manipulate that data that's in it.
Excellent. And then last question that he's got posted here, can multiple of the same variable be added at once? For example, instead of just adding one item at a time, can you add or remove in bulk?
No, not as yet, but currently you can only add and remove one item at a time.
Which then leads me to my question, and I know others have questions as well, so I'll just quickly ask this one. What iterations would you do to this if you had more time to improve on it?
As I mentioned earlier, if I had more time to complete this, I would probably have the edit button on the main page. So if you wanted to edit the minimum quantity to be added to the shopping list page, you could just click the edit button and do that instead of having to delete and then re-add the item.
Okay, and did you give any thought about using the barcode scanning option to add inventory to your list?
No.
Okay. Kobe's other question is, so if you close the program and then open it again, open it, can you open the save again I can't read his question. It's all wordy. So if you close the program and then reopen it, can you open the save again, or is it all data lost?
Yeah, all the data is saved in the database. So when you reopen the website, it'll all be there just as you left it the last time you were on.
Okay. And then do you ever plan on integrating XR tech to help scan objects?
That could be a project in the future. I could implement that if I had a lot more time. So I could think about doing that over the summer.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up to others to ask questions because I know a few other people had questions they wanted to share.
Brandon, Sunny here. I love the project, by the way. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
From an architecture level, what was your decision-making process to go with SQL? I assume you use SQL Express, and if you could talk more about, the database selection and your coding selection. What was your guiding light in that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I was just wondering why you in choosing SQL over other database platforms, or like even just MySQL and your other software. Is that something that was help selected with your mentor, or if you had a preference?
I didn't really have any preference. It was just what my mentor suggested. He used MySQL. That's what he suggested I used.
Yeah. And in terms of going on premise or cloud, did you look at using Microsoft Azure to host your SQL?
Hold on.
If you don't